Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and now a man who wonders if we have proof that there is no God and that farts often sound funny but smell bad. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today?
Uh, I'm in shock. Pocket Locker. Hot program audience. Joe Biden drops out.
Yeah, he did. He did. He dropped out. We have
What?
been predicting this. Been predicting it. Not surprised.
I didn't think he'd let go. I didn't think he'd let go. I hoped he would. Again, his legacy being to leave office before the end of his term, making Kamala the first female president. Like that's his gift to America. And he makes history, she makes history.
Well, yeah. So that's definitely what people are hoping for. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, it seemed like he was going to stay in for a while, but it
Mhm.
just kept getting. My thing is, I'm just glad it's that part of it is over because, to be honest, I
Mhm.
think it was getting to be quite divisive. I don't know. It's just like people, I don't know. People were like basically not okay with like even having the conversation. It's like people were mad at people just for saying, "Hey, a lot of people are calling on Biden to step down." Um,
Mhm.
so I'm just kind of glad that whole thing is over. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, PC. Now all the negatives that were Biden's can be imposed on Trump. They won't do that, of course. Um, but that's what they should do. That is indeed what they should do.
I'm good.
Um, Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna try to pull up Hot Program on my computer, so I can see the
Uh,
comment section and participate there as well. Let me put your name in there. Hot 86. Maybe it comes up that way.
all right.
But
So
very interesting.
yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. I think a lot of people get in line. It doesn't even. I'd be surprised even if they did an open convention. I think it's just gonna be probably Kamala, and then she'll probably select the vice president. Um, they'll
It's
probably
Gavin
announce that at
Newsom.
some point. You think
It'll be
so?
Gavin Newsom. Oh, absolutely. Because Gavin Newsom probably can out argue most people on the planet. He presents well. He's handsome. He's been a governor. He loves politics. I think that'll be the
Be interesting.
combo.
I think it'll be like Bashir or Shapiro or somebody like that. It's they all are in the same position, but there are certain people. There are certain people. All right, there's nuance here because there's certain people who you're the governor, you're a senator, you're whatever, and you would say you can't say no to being the vice president, obviously, because you're right there in the line of succession. But there's also traditionally been politicians who won't do that because it is sometimes seen as like a secondary position, like you're a vice president. So in that sense, in that sense, Newsom, I think, is likely, like in the sense of they clearly want him to be on the presidential stage next, and he's got a lot of support behind him. But I do think he's the most likely of that group of people to also say
Hmm.
no because he's like, nah, I'm
Oh,
good.
interesting.
Like, yeah, because there's no need for somebody like that to be the vice president. It's like, nah, why bother? I'm the governor of California. That's like one of the, that's like arguably one of the most powerful governorships in the country, right? And one of the most
Hmm.
democratic states. and then he just goes for president. I used to feel the same way about Cory Booker. Like, no, I don't ever want to see him be somebody's vice president. But it would still be a good pick. It's definitely possible. It's just interesting. But yeah, I think Bashir would be good. That's what Liz is saying. Don't know if they want two California candidates. That's another good point. They're both, because Kamala's from California and Newsom's from California. Yeah, usually they'll do somebody like from the Midwest or the South or the East Coast.
Well, I had wanted, you'll remember Pocket Locker, I had wanted Elizabeth Warren to be her vice president.
Oh, Elizabeth Warren would be good. Also, I wouldn't rule out New Jersey's governor, Phil Murphy, because he's terming out, and a lot of people think he's good. So it'll be interesting. Also, what they do demographically and all this type of stuff. Kamala, Michelle Obama would be. Yeah, they can't get Michelle off the bench, and I can't blame her. If I'm Michelle Obama, I'm not. Honestly, I don't. I wouldn't want to be president. I think that's a little harder than I want to work, and I think no, and
it's a tough job.
I think
would be a tough job.
feels the same way, right? Like Michelle Obama don't want to work that hard right now. Like, it's a lot. Hey, Lena.
Hello.
Lena's saying Pritzker.
Pritzker.
It's a lot. So
I don't know who that is.
Do y'all think they'll announce before the convention, or do you think they'll do something? My thought is they'll probably try to announce before the convention. That way, it's they can be unified going in, and it's all a big thing.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Also, you don't need all those weeks of speculation. So we'll
Very
see.
true. Very true.
All right. So today's topic is we're going to be talking about. Also, y'all do all the YouTube stuff. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to our channels. Also, check out not Skeptic Haven. Listen to me. Go to Michael Beverly's channel, and there's a link in the description for the debate I did yesterday with
Michael Behe.
And then my one black friend was also on Michael Beverly's channel last week, I believe. So check out Mike Beverly's channel and check out both of those streams. All right. So we're gonna be talking about atheists going to church, and this is a topic that I have very mixed feelings about. I have strong mixed feelings. So be prepared for that. But look, I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna be watching respond to a clip from Truth Wanted, which is a call-in show. So I'll go ahead and play like the first part of the call or whatever, and we'll get him. But at least this will set us up.
Oh, I thought I clicked the talk button, but apparently, there we go. Hi, habeas corpus. How you doing?
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Scott. They got the name wrong. It's habeas porpoise.
Habeas porpoise. Okay. That makes sense. That makes a lot more sense.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but hey, nice to talk to you guys. Some months ago, I guess this may be 6 or 8 months ago, I called one of the Sunday shows to say...
Trees, I appreciate it. Trees said you smoked that ass, Jay. Trees, I wasn't playing with him. I really wasn't. When you go into a debate type situation, I'm trying to knock him out or choke him out, and it's the referee's job to pull me off of him. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. Lena said I tried to go to church, it didn't end well. We did a members only stream about that, Lena. That was a little bit ago. That was so much fun. Just hear the stuff that they were saying. But then, yeah, you did your whole thing. Let's not talk about that, right? We'll wait till we're on the other side of some things.
Rejoining my church of origin, a very liberal, progressive church, disciples of Christ, very vanilla, very progressive, very LGBT, welcoming. And they were happy to have me as an atheist. I told them up front, I'm a humanist, I'm an atheist, I'm a skeptic. They're like, come on in, come on in. And I did it for 3 reasons: community, because I grew up with these people. I live in a town of 11,000 people, so I knew most of the people one way or another in the church. I did it for community, as a nexus to do community good, distributing food, clothing, helping people when they need it, and an opportunity to learn and to teach. And some of the atheist community gave me grief over joining a progressive church.
All right. So a couple things to note up front. Like, he told them up front, okay, he was honest on the way in. And then mentions these sort of 3 reasons: community, the opportunity to do good, and then the opportunity to learn and to teach. Yeah, like that's and then he's getting grief on the internet. Yeah, I don't know. I'll let it roll for a sec, but let's just remember that.
Do you mean like online community, or are you talking about community in your area?
Online.
Okay.
A couple of people actually said, you were never an atheist in the first place.
That old chestnut. Okay.
That's ridiculous.
If you don't believe in a God, that's how it works.
Yeah, I definitely.
Right. Yeah.
That's all that's required.
Yeah, I definitely think that's silly. Yeah, I definitely think that's really silly. But yeah. No, I think I want to wholly set that aside. I don't even think that that's like a good faith critique. Like, I don't even think that that's like, if someone's telling you they're an atheist, they're an atheist, you know, and if you don't agree with their idea about going to church or whatever, that's fine, but certainly doesn't make them not an atheist. Where I guess we could just jump into it, but like, so I find these reasons very interesting. I do want you to hear some more of what he says. He says some more interesting stuff. But I just really think it's important people hold on to those 3 reasons he mentioned: community, the opportunity to like do good stuff, and then the opportunity to learn and to teach. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I think all these things are wonderful. Why close yourself off to if you can find a very large room full of exciting, wonderful people to spend your time with and enjoy, do that. That's absolutely a positive thing to do. The community aspect that the church provides, I mean, it can be, if you're not in a gossipy sort of setting, it can be absolutely wonderful with things like picnics, or you all go bowling together and stuff like that, or to, some local amusement park, what have you. All those, that's wonderful. The giving aspect, the fact that if there's a church that, like my neighbor's church, they do community outreach and they prepare meals for people, to give to the homeless and other people who need them. That sort of thing's absolutely wonderful. My wife has wanted to go volunteer, to help out with that sort of thing, but she's a Christian. And I told her, if you want me to come along with you, I'll come right along with you and help. I don't have an issue with any of that. Making a difference, I think that's almost all of us. We want to share our lives because we know we matter, and helping other people realize that they matter too can be a very fulfilling thing. And sometimes when you're not doing so well, helping someone else get that feeling ignites that in you. So I say to the caller, habeas corpus, I think you got a good idea here. And if he can't create an organization of his own, right? Because that might be hard, and he can't find one that isn't a church, then I think those believers at the church should be happy to have him.
I mean, yeah. So I would mostly I've agreed with most of that. But yeah, I'm starting to have some mixed feelings. I want to I'm gonna let them get into it. I realize we can kind of go through a little bit more of the call and then just like jump in and discuss it. So I'll reserve some of that.
Sure.
I think there tends to be, and we've all heard that about the angry atheists, and most of them tend to be online. And I think maybe these are the people you're experiencing. And I don't agree with them. I'll be honest with you. I think everybody should be free to do whatever they feel like doing. If you feel that's the best outlet for you to live that life that you choose and to do those things that you want to do, I don't have a problem with you doing it, especially if you're not going there to believe, but to do those things. And anytime you're doing good for your community, I don't care who you're doing it with or what avenues you're doing it through, you're doing a good thing. So I'm behind you 100%.
You said people were giving you a hard time. Are they giving you a hard time because of what you are specifically doing, or are they saying that you are harming the atheist community or atheist effort, or what exactly were they giving you a hard time about? Are they saying that you're...
The vibe I get is that I'm a traitor to the cause.
Okay.
By joining a church, I'm compromising. You know what? I raise a lot of interesting questions at that church. Think of me as the...
All right, so PC said, I'm not with it. I'm not trying to sit there and listen without pushing back, but that's just me. Yeah, that's the other side of this, PC. And I think that's kind of why, like I said, I have mixed opinions about this. But that's exactly where I think this is going. But look, let's listen to this because this part is really interesting here, where he's talking about the questions he asked.
As a secret agent church, you know what? I raise a lot of interesting questions at that church. Think of me as a secret agent, as the mole who's saying, was it really was there really a global flood? Not that those people even believe that, but it's a wonderful community. I've made a lot of friends up there, and I can't fathom why atheists would care. A lot of people said, couldn't you find community and public service and yada yada somewhere else? I have looked. I've joined political groups. I've looked a number of groups. I have not found anything that compares to this group of people.
Okay. So it's a personal connection then. It's not, you go and you participate in the religious rituals and the hymn singing, and do you take communion?
I do take communion. I can always use a cracker and a little tiny bit of grape juice. Why wouldn't I?
Okay.
Okay, so all right, so let's get into a little bit of this. I think so this is where I think the other side of this comes into me. So I'll just lay a couple things out there. One, I think, okay, if you're there for, first off, these three things: community, the opportunity to like do good things in the community or the world or whatever, and an opportunity to teach and to learn, covers a lot of ground. But if that's going to be what it's about, then to me, like, okay, then focus on that. But what it really sounds like to sometimes, and you'll see sort of a bravado or almost a defensiveness coming in, and I get that. It seems more about personal, like, oh no, I like these people, they make me feel good. I've looked, and I try to make friends elsewhere, but I couldn't find anybody as nice as these people, and so I think that's a little superficial. First off, I think a person like this, in a sense, may be closeted in a sort of dependence on Christian community. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if I don't think they're not an atheist, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stop identifying as an atheist at some point, because it's just a little bit, you're buying into it. It's a cult. this is what cults do. And I had to do this myself. So for those that don't know, I participate in a number of churches as an atheist. I'm a worship musician. I'm a musician, and so playing at churches was just gig. Like a lot of musicians, especially live an area where there's not a lot of live music and stuff like that. Like playing in church is pretty much one of the only gigs you're gonna get. But so that's where I come from, and so I did a lot of this myself, and that's why I have mixed emotions about it. Like, and because I can identify with that feeling of, oh, I really like the sense of community that I get here. Oh, look at all the good things these people are doing out there in the neighborhood, and I can be a part of that. And you do have those conversations where you're having lunch with the pastor and talking about evolution, or having conversations with other people in the in the worship team, the tech team, and going on retreats and going on trips. So I've done a lot of that, but I've also become sort of critical of that. Part of it is I don't know that it works. Like this whole sense of like, oh, you're teaching and learning and stuff like this. I don't know. Like in a sense, it's hard because it's not like an academic setting, right? And so sometimes it feels like you're teaching and learning, you're doing these things with these people, but I don't know, is it going to make a difference? And also it's like, would they accept that? Like, yeah, okay, so you told them you're a non-believer, which by the way typically just means a few people. Like, and so in my case, being part of the worship team, it was like I wanted to make sure the pastor knew, I wanted to make sure the worship leader knew. There were some people who maybe came to know as friends or as I got to know them, but it's not like they got up there on the microphone in front of the whole church in service and said, "Oh, hey, we have somebody new in our congregation and they're an atheist." Maybe they did, but that's unheard of, right?
That
Um,
that literally during COVID, something similar to that happened. A woman that I was dating, she wanted to know, like, hey, would you be willing to go to church online with me? I'm like, look, if we end up in a long-term relationship, I promise you this, I'll go to church 2 Sundays a month minimum if you want to, and if the month has 5 Sundays in it, I'll go a third one. If there's any special events there you want me to attend, I more than likely will. I'm probably not going to say no because I want to be supportive. Well, she asked me to go to the online church, so I'd be in my house, which is like 60 miles away from her house. But so that's what I would do. And the minister she told the man I was an atheist, and the minister introduced me as such. And it was a very brief thing, like, oh, so have you read the Bible? I'm like, yeah, I have. But when they would have discussions, because you had breakout groups, and they would have questions, I would bring things up, I guess, not like I would on Hot Program. I wasn't adversarial at all. I would just say, hey, here's some additional context for that. Hey, here's another scripture you might want to go to. Hey, this ties in with that. That's sort of what I did, because I wasn't there to defend my atheism. No one asked me to. No one was saying, hey, you're wrong and we're right. I didn't get that kind of attitude, so I didn't have to match that energy. It was more of a, like, we're really excited to see you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you and Nicole have a lovely time.
yeah, see, I think
That's how it went.
there's a lot of KCA Randy said, how long do you think you will feel welcome once they figure out the caller isn't persuadable? And again, this is why, like, I hate
That's
to
a
say
great
it, but like,
question.
I hate to say this, but like, I just call bullshit on a lot of that friendliness in these religious congregations. They're cults, y'all. They're cults, and cults have to recruit people. This is like why, if people look at the way I was with Behe, like it comes off as, here's this super nice, friendly guy, he's, just trying to talk about intelligent design, and then this like lunatic evolutionary biologist that just keeps telling them he's he's full of shit. But it's like we have to, as critical thinkers, we have to be willing to look at the situation for what it is. I'm not going to treat you like I'm so, and again, I'm not saying you're rude, you be rude to the people, or you know, you go in and you like are angry at them or for something, but you internally, at least me internally, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, these are the most lovely people, because you know that that's how cults work, and that's how the recruitment works. Like you don't ever think that about your psychologist, right? People are very well aware that, like, yeah, when I'm and the you know, hour 30 or 60 minutes I spend in front of the shrink, that they make me feel like they're such a great friend, and you know, they're so concerned about my life, and everything that matters to me matters to them. But you realize when they punch out or they leave the office, like, they don't, you know, I'm just a client. They don't think about me like that's their job, right? It's the same thing with like a salesperson. Like how many people are like get suckered in the vice? Like, it's like, oh my goodness, the salesperson was so wonderful. It's like, how do you think they sell things? um, so you know, it's just one of those things. So I do agree with Randy, or I think I take Randy's question, like, once being all friendly and stuff like that up front is part of the sales pitch, and it's also part of their mythology. Like, part of their mythology is like, you can be a non-believer, you can be an outsider, you come in, you experience what they experience, you hear the word, you know, you do the thing, and that transforms you into a believer. And so I do think, naively in some sense, a lot of them are welcoming because they're filled with that expectation of conversion. But if you sort of, as a really well-grounded non-believer, understand that that's not really possible, it does become different. And I'll tell you from experience, it strains relationships, both directions, because we can be friends, we can love each other and all of that, but it gets frustrating. We go out to lunch twice a month, every month, and there's literally nothing you can bring up that I find even compelling to consider your faith. And apparently there's nothing I can bring up that can get you to genuinely question the validity of your faith. And both parties just over time just lose steam, because and rightfully so, y'all, rightfully so, because you realize it isn't going anywhere.
Well, if you make it about that, so my brother Richard, mentioned him before. He races motorcycles. Well, he used to, and he's in a motorcycle club.
No, but I was just, I'm saying about that. I'm saying about that. Yeah, of course you can still have a relationship and just set that disagreement aside.
Yeah, you exactly. I was gonna say most
But
of the when they hang out and they're sitting in the clubhouse, they're not talking about motorcycles the whole time. There's other things that they have interests in that they sit and discuss.
sure, but I just mean having those purposeful conversations. And honestly, too, like, I don't know. I do lose interest in people over things like that. Like,
Hmm.
because I think that's part of the arrogance of Christianity. I think that's part of the arrogance of religious people. I do think they should change their mind, and I don't think it's reasonable for them, when when they get confronted with the people that credibly, you know, don't believe, and it just doesn't mean anything to them. Like,
Hmm.
in a sense, I hate to sound too emotional, but like, in a sense, it hurts my feelings, because it's like, yo, I'm a former believer, and I'm telling you this is a bunch of bullshit, and like, that doesn't move you. So like, how good of friends are we really? Like, you know, it's like, because it's like, it's I feel like in their head, they're still always making it about something else, and so it gets to be hard. And I do think, yeah, you could set it aside and have a relationship based on other stuff. But I actually, again, I think that's problematic, because, like, that's one of the things that happens in, I don't want to, let's say, I want to say abusive relationships, or at least somewhere on that scale of relationships with messed up power dynamics. Like, because it's like agree to disagree. People say that a lot.
I
Well,
am one of those people.
who does that benefit though? It only benefits the people that are wrong, right? And honestly, I also think that other people who do that, it speaks to a lot of privilege, because it's like, why are you? It's just, and I know that's where a lot of where you're coming from is where most of the people I think in the chat and the community are coming from. Where I'm coming from, I think, is like weirdo land, but it's just stuff that I think about, and I realize that so much of what we do, even so much of the way we socialize, even as non-believers, I feel really just benefits them, and I'm trying to figure out what that really looks like. And for me, at least right now, it looks like a lot of really uncomfortable pushback. Because again, like, and people see it differently. So a lot of people just see it as, oh, you're part of a religion and I'm not religious, or you're part of a group that I'm not a part of, or we think differently about these ideas. For me, being honest, it's more like, seriously, you're in a you're in an organization that I think is really bad. But beyond that, you've made that thing central to your identity. Made it your whole personality, we would say, in a lot of times. And then further, you're in a cult. And so it's like, I don't know, but yeah. So I think I think since I have like those stronger feelings about it, it's harder for me to just agree to disagree, or set it aside. And that's kind of ties back into this call, because I think that's where I think a lot of people's criticism is like, you are endorsing the group. It's very hard, like when you go, if you go in Sunday morning, you get up on the stage where the pastor's looking or wherever, and you take a picture out of the congregation. It doesn't come with labels, who are the true believers and who are not the true believers. um so you're just one of the crowd. And so unless you're really actively having those conversations, it gets tough, right? Because the most you could, so for me, so for instance, like when I was part of a church, like I had to do a lot to really have those conversations, but it's still really hard, right? Because let's be honest, the church isn't going to give you platform for them. They're not going to, when the pastor goes to preach about some literal nonsense or whatever he does from the Bible, he's not going to invite you up there to give the other side. You see what I'm saying? And
Counterpoint with my one black friend.
exactly, like
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. And I've had myself in situations where, like, say, even at a smaller like Bible study, where it's a little bit more casual and everybody is talking about their ideas about the scriptures or whatever, um, it's still very difficult um, to speak up about having a different take on things, even in those settings. And so you end up kind of doing it mostly in like one-on-ones or small, like, small like relationships. So I just want people to realize, like, it's tough. It's tough. And I really do think what this guy's trying to do is like a noble idea, but it's very difficult. Yeah. Um, all right. So one more thing I'll throw out there before I play. I guess we can play again. Is there's an analysis of participation that makes it constructive. Um, so when you go to like a concert, right, and your favorite artist is singing a song, part of what makes that such an unbelievable experience is you bought tickets ahead of time. You playing the whole night with your girlfriends. Y'all got dressed to the hilt. You went out to a super fancy nice dinner. Then you went to the concert. There's just dozens of thousands of people around you who are all interested in the same artist. Y'all are singing every word to every song. There's a way in which if you take away all the people who are doing that, you don't have anything. It's not this crazy experience. It's just a band on stage playing a song. And so there's a way in which we think a lot of times if you buy a ticket to a thing, you show up, you're just a passive watcher, right? You're just an observer, but really you're constructing the experience. You're part of creating this. And that is what I had to ultimately struggle with, especially being on the worship team, because you are making this happen. You're part of the band. You're part of making the music. You're part of encouraging people to worship. But it is
That
the same.
priming.
Yeah, but it is the same thing if you're in the pews. You're singing the songs, you're throwing your hands up, you're going through the rituals, you're taking communion. That's not going to really signal to people that you're not in alignment with the church's beliefs. That's going to make people believe that you're counted in the number, right? That you're part of the group. And so I think that's why it's tough. That's what you could tell. I have really, when I said mixed feelings, y'all, I wasn't playing.
Well, I do wonder if, since the experience is based on the individual, how they interpret and internalize the experience. Are most people there just NPCs? You're in the band. If I'm a devout Christian and I'm in the crowd and you're an atheist in the band, for me, unless we interact, you are a non-player character in
Yeah,
my faith practice.
I'm
You might as well be a soundtrack. They might as well be playing some, a CD,
sure.
DVD, an MP3, whatever,
Yeah.
because we don't interact. Now, if you do something that's interesting to me, well, you're an influential NPC. But if we sit down and we have a conversation, then you're definitely no longer just a non-player character, unless that word bubble pops up above your head and you say whatever, and I move on.
So
But I think the people like the minister provide direction. I guess you'll see that from other church officials that get up on the platform and speak. They are a direct influence on what I'm doing on a grander scale than just someone sitting 6 pews ahead, and all I ever see is the back of their head, of them. I don't even know what they look like. I can't tell you.
yeah, no, that's a good point. It's definitely a continuum. So Sarah, what's up, Sarah? Said I empathize with people in areas where almost all group socialization is church based. That has to be a mind screw, but you end up enabling a system where that's the only option. Yeah, I was like, I'm wondering if that's Sophia, but no, I think this is kind of what this person is getting at. It's been really interesting. All right, let me play some more of the call for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Oop, go the wrong direction. Here we go.
Open.
Well, speaking on behalf of all atheists, no, of course I'm not. Speaking on behalf of myself, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that per se. I would say, I would say that promoting the idea that that's the only place and way that you can find community perhaps could be seen as a negative way. But again, all of these judgments would be divorced from your context, right? So maybe you've tried, maybe you need personal connection just like anybody else. You need to have, I don't know, something to do on Sundays, like
Okay. Let me get in here. Okay. These are two great points. Okay, so first, and maybe we'll come back to it, is this idea of reinforcing the idea that church is the only or the best place to get that sense of community. And I think that is a big problem. And when you participate in church as a non-believer, you're reinforcing that situation because you yourself are now focusing your community on that area. And again, guilty as charged, y'all. I've done this, and it's been to the point where literally, like, I've been dating people who are also non-believers, and they've basically been like, you're like dating a Christian because you're either at church, practicing for church, at rehearsal for church, or at a church social activity, even as a non-believer. But it was the same thing. I was part of the worship team. I was part of the worship team at church I really enjoyed going to, and I really did like the people. And I used to explain to people like this. Real talk, if you're in a band, right, one of the best things you can do with your band is not play music together, right? Because if all you ever do is rehearsal and your shows, you never get to know each other. So I would always tell people, a big part of the reason I go to the small group Bible studies or whatever, and I go to church trips and stuff like that, is I'm getting to spend time and getting to know the people I do this with. And and I always felt that was great. But I think this person is making a good point that it really does reinforce that situation. And Lena said this: if there's no socialist party, you don't go join a liberal one, you create a socialist party. And I wanted to pause here and talk about this because otherwise I'll forget. But this is the kind of the deal where I understand now where people come from when they say like stuff like liberals are the worst. When they blame liberals on being the reason we don't get the kind of progress we need, because the liberals are always trying to compromise with the conservatives. They're always trying to tell us we're doing too much too fast. They're always afraid to be really progressive, and the list could go on, y'all. And I feel in a sense the same way about liberal Christians. I recognize, like a lot of people do, somebody being a liberal Christian in many ways is better for me, in my opinion, than being a conservative Christian. But I'm afraid it's really just a step in the right direction, but far too few steps and not quickly enough. And so, in a sense, liberal Christianity really frustrates me because I don't want to play this stupid game anymore. Christianity isn't true. And even though liberal Christians, again, are better than conservative Christians, they're not truly liberal. They're not truly secular. They're not truly humanist, right? And so there is a lot of religious bullshit even in the more progressive liberal people. They just stay away from certain hot button issues or whatever. And so that is another concern here, is that when you're an atheist or a non-believer and you're attending and participating in churches, even ones that you consider to be liberal or more progressive, again, you're reinforcing the idea that liberal Christianity is what we need, and what the real solution is to make Christianity better, rather than no sort of truthfulness and adult integrity would require us to recognize that it's not true, and then seek to build community based on secular stuff. But
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, secular stuff, let's be honest, is more fun. If you want to be a community builder within any organization, a company, um, a church, a band, as you say, spend time not playing music. Bowling, I would argue, is way more fun than ice skating or Bible study, in my opinion, right? I'm very interested in the Bible. I'd still rather do many other activities with a group than just sitting around listening to lectures on biblical studies. It's just better. And that's why these youth groups go places for churches. They say a prayer before they eat or before they leave. They say a prayer before everybody goes home. But the activity wasn't having a Bible under their nose the entire time as they all devoutly read the Word of God. It isn't that.
Right.
I often look. We can agree. Like, we must agree that since statistically so few Christians in the United States have actually read the Bible, it isn't the focus. And it's never going to be, unless Project 2025 has some section where you're forced to read the Bible. You're forced to be able to recite so much of it, and blah, 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 blah. Unless it becomes that. And even then, if you want to put a bad taste in people's mouth, that's exactly what you do. You force it on them. And I think one of the strangest things when I was a believer, as I look back, is that I didn't read the Bible very often. I had little to no interest. It was more fun for me to hear the preacher stand up there and read the stories and add his or her commentary. That was entertaining. It
I think for
wasn't
a lot of
entertaining.
believers, there's a deep down insecurity about it. There's a yeah, there I don't know how to I don't know what the right words are, but I think they have a feeling of being intimidated by the book.
I
And it's not like I don't think it's quite like I wouldn't say like, oh, they know it's not true, so they're not reading it, right? But maybe there's a lot in there that's uncomfortable to read, or a lot that's in there
certainly,
that they don't understand, or they wouldn't really
certainly.
know how to explain. And it's
Mhm.
almost like they know they're supposed to be excited to explore this, but they're not willing to do it without someone holding their hand.
I can remember Pocket Locker sitting in church as a kid. I must have been 10 years old, hearing this older woman, like 50s, whatever, say, she doesn't read Revelation in the Bible, the book of Revelation. She won't read it. Evidently, if I remember right, her point was that it was a little frightening to her. But the rest of it, she was completely fine with. And I noticed as I got older and I was asked to read the Bible, I wouldn't want to read Revelation because I'm thinking, well, I don't know what's in there now, other than, I guess there's some pretty scary stuff, and I don't want to be scared. As an adult and an atheist, probably the most interesting, second or third most interesting book in the Bible is, in my opinion, Revelation. It's fascinating. But because I used to be a writer, and if I wasn't, believe me, it wouldn't be fascinating to me. But to see how it was built upon previously existing ideas is fascinating to me. Certain little nuances about it, I'm trying to suss them out. Like, wait a minute, why would they write this? And who is this person here? And what does this signify? It's become fascinating. And if I could go back in a time machine and say to that woman, hey, you shouldn't have any problem reading that book. It's fascinating. But obviously can't do
I
that.
think it should be required. All right, let's roll some tape.
Required reading?
Yeah. Matter of fact, and I just decided this as I was listening to you.
Really?
But yeah, no, but more like on the church side of things. Like you should not like churches should not accept anyone saying they're actually a Christian unless they've read the entire Bible. And like
Oh,
churches should be very serious about that. They should be like, there's not like no, we're not like you can visit it, you can be a guest, but you cannot be considered a member of this church, and we do not consider you truly born again until you read the Bible. They can't because I think you're just supposed to say, I accept Jesus into my heart or whatever, and that's how you get saved. But
that's as far as it's going, yeah.
so much better if you had to read the book first.
I accept
So,
Jesus into my heart, but he can go no further.
yeah. I'll tell you, you know what the Bible is? I'm going to tell you what the Bible is. The Bible is, I agree to terms and conditions, right? Nobody reads
The
that.
EULA, it's the EULA.
Nobody, yeah,
Yeah, just
nobody reads exactly. Nobody reads that stuff. You just check the box. Come on, let's go. Let's check the box. It's trying to go to heaven, man. I got time for all this nonsense. That's what the Bible is. Thanks for
well
dropping in the
said.
gather link, PC. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. So
Everyone else. And the fact that you decide to do that in itself, I don't think is necessarily quote unquote, sabotaging or betraying of the atheist cause. I will say there's going to be assholes in any group pretty much. And there's plenty of asshole atheists out there too, that are going to give you shit for doing things that you enjoy. If you don't believe in a God, then you're an atheist. That's the bottom line there. If you like singing songs and you like sitting in a pew and you like taking your cracker and your grape juice, then, there are worse things that you could be doing. Personally, I wouldn't necessarily judge somebody just for doing that. We all have our own situations, and we all try to be human and deal with things and interact with people and have meaningful experiences in our life. And so if you're looking for some sort of support or some sort of backup, I mean, I suppose we could provide that for you here. I mean, I think, both of us, we feel that, you're not being a bad atheist by any stretch of the imagination. However, but I can see how it could be seen as promoting religious belief. If you're saying that a church is the only place that you can find community, clearly that's not the case. We're demonstrating that as we speak right now. You're communing with other atheists, and we're not promoting any irrational beliefs. And so,
It's the best. It's the best place for me. It's a mile
for you to have face-to-face contact.
This church is super into food, and I love to cook. So there's a lot of food sharing going on here, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Great for me too. There's just a lot of positives here, and very few.
Let me ask you: have your attitudes towards your belief in God changed in all the months you've been going to the church?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I was expecting to hear.
Right,
and that's why I don't understand why.
So there's a couple follow-up questions I have. So again, y'all, you mentioned the three things up front, but when you really get into it, it's a me thing. And I find the same thing as Christians. That's why I said it wouldn't surprise me if he became a Christian, because when you listen to Christians, when you actually ask Christians any sort of challenge to their faith, they're going to fall back on what it does for them, how it makes them feel, what it does in their life, because that's ultimately why they're there. I'm not saying that they're being dishonest when they do that. And I think it's a similar situation here. The other thing that I think is interesting is the idea of, one, the sense of community, and two, doing good in the community. I actually, again, I've done them myself, so I don't want anybody to think I'm being judgmental, but I don't see those things as being as automatically positive as other people do. So a couple things. Again, I think this is how cults work, and I think Christianity is a cult. So I don't credit them for giving people this incredible sense of community. Actually, I think that's a bad thing. I think that's an obstacle to people figuring out the truth. And I think that that's a huge part of the delusion. Again, I say this all the time, but when you're dealing with opposition, you have to attack where their advances. In other words, you have to go after what they do that works for them, right? And so if Christians weren't like that way, like if they just presented their ideas straight up, or they didn't try to do all this community building or whatever, and they just like, that would be fine. But it's like, unfortunately, they use community building to do their harm and to do the bad things that they do, so we have to attack their community building. It's not that we're saying community building is bad, it's just saying this is not the right community to be community building with. You see what I'm saying? The other thing is, when you go into like we do good in the world, I think about mobsters. Where do you think mobsters got that nonsense from? Right? The idea that they could just crime all the time, but give away some turkeys around Thanksgiving, give away some toys during Christmas time, give away backpacks with school supplies before kids go back to school, and get people to look the other way. Who else does this? Corrupt politicians. Who else does this? Corporations trying to whitewash their monopolies and crimes, right? Like, and that's how I see the church. So when you're like, oh, I love this church because it's giving out backpacks and it has a soup kitchen and it hosts AA meetings and all this stuff. Like, again, y'all, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. I've been a part of churches that do that, and even as a non-believer, I felt good about all the things that the church was doing out in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But this is the critique of it, and I understand it now. I've been thinking about it more, and I see where people are coming from. Right? It's like you're part of a bad, or they think you're part of a bad organization. They think you're part of a corrupt organization. They think you're part of an organization that, at minimum, is looking to lie to people with very severe consequences. And they're saying, "Hey, you helping them manipulate people like this is not a good thing." And yeah, I just think you got to think through it, right? And really, that's this is like any other situation in life where somebody is asking you to be a part of something that sounds good or offering you something that seems really good. You have to do your due diligence to figure out what you're really going to be purchasing or what you're really going to be a part of. Yeah.
You're betraying atheism. And honestly, I don't even know how you can betray atheism. That just seems like a weird concept to me to begin with, right?
You didn't have to sign the contract?
No, I did. Well, I'm not an atheist. I'm an atheist.
Oh, right. Okay, that's it. Right.
That's
okay.
why.
Yeah. We'll send you one in the mail.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Porpoise. How would you feel, and I'm just playing devil's
Lena, what do you mean by new age atheist?
advocate here. How would you feel if at some point you found out that somebody became a theist because of your participation in the social activities at this church?
I would say that is entirely up to them. I have no control over
Good answer.
I'm going to speak my piece, and if they can take it however they want it. Let me tell you something else. This church does some interesting stuff. For the summer, we're doing Wednesday movie night. We get together and watch a largely secular, usually secular movie. Once a month, we get together for what's called beer and Bible study, where we go over to somebody's house and drink beer and talk shit about the Bible. So I'm happy.
I can see the flyers. I can see the flyers now. We're meeting at Dan's house to discuss the book of Daniel, talk shit about the Bible. The beer that night will be whatever's local brewery.
Okay. Yeah. So again, like you're hearing the me though too, right? Like I love going to bowling night.
But it's about him. It makes sense. It's about his enjoyment.
Yes. And again, like, good on the church, because that is I think churches that are doing that type of stuff are attracting more people. And it ties back to what Triceratops has said earlier, which is there's a lot of places where the church is sort of the only or the easiest way to get community, right? Especially because, like, the older you get, it's just hard to meet people, y'all. I meet people primarily online, socially, romantically, job offers, like everything in my life is 2024. I'm online, right? So I'm not just out in the streets meeting people. I could go to a bar or club, but I'm not really a big drinker like that. And a lot of times also, hey, I'm not I'm not as young as I once was, right? So there's a lot of ways, depending on where you're at, your age and stage of life, just other factors that you have going on. How easy is it to find people that you share hobbies with and things like that. It can be hard to find community that's doing stuff on a regular basis outside of church. So I don't begrudge them for enjoying those activities. But yeah, it does seem like that's what it's largely about to a lot of people.
For a little pushback, since this first came up on an ACA show months ago. But for God's sake, I'm connecting with friends. I'm doing community good. I'm liking these people. If you don't think I should be doing that, fuck you. I'm still going to do it. So that's
I volunteered at a church that did a food pantry program where they gave out free food once a week to people. And I had nothing to do with the church at all, but I helped them run the food pantry. So like I said, I don't see any problem with it myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I necessarily have a problem per se with what you're doing. Just if you want to try to wrap your head around the naysayers that you're experiencing in the atheist community, perhaps they could view what you're doing, and whether or not this is what you're doing is, all we know about you is the couple of minutes that you've explained to us. But just trying to understand where some of the pushback might come from. Perhaps they see any kind of promotion of religious beliefs would be harmful to society, and they might consider that participation in these activities is kind of a de facto support. And I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that that's my position, but I can understand how somebody might think that. And the feedback that you're getting from these online atheists, remember, they might not understand your context, but then you also don't understand their context too. Mm-hmm. And so they might be sore about something or touchy about something, or maybe somebody was just calling them, a fake atheist or a traitor to the cause and that kind of thing. And so there could be many, many different reasons why you might be hearing that kind of thing. And so I would encourage you to, first of all, not take it personally. Mm-hmm. If people that don't know you are criticizing you, then, okay, fine. That's what you think. That's okay. I think that if you're doing, if you're taking care of yourself, doing what's good for you, and I think if you're conscientious and trying to make a positive, if one person accuses you of supporting religion and saying that, lending credence to some of their beliefs, you could flip the script and say the same thing that you said to us at the beginning. You kind of see it as a way of like almost like you're a mole, kind of, right? Maybe you are influencing other atheists to maybe reconsider their position, but who's to say you're not also encouraging theists to reconsider their position as well?
We lost them.
Did we lose? Yes. Did we lose our caller? Okay. Porpoise, if you want to try calling back and connect back up with us, we can. All
right. So I think this is all super interesting. And yeah, like, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about, you can sort of be in there with that mole type thing, or, you're maybe de facto reinforcing their stuff?
I think either way is fine. I don't know that anybody. Well, the reason why, because I don't know how, if you grow to love those people in that congregation, have dear friends there, I think ultimately the conversations about religion go away, except for when they want your take. Like, let's give, for instance, I'm sort of corresponding with someone on Instagram about this, who wondered why I think the biblical God kills people for his glory, to glorify himself. Why? Or what were some scriptures about that? So I sent him some. And that person now has to consider what I said. I didn't say other people shouldn't believe it. I didn't say other people shouldn't believe the Bible. I didn't say it has no value. I didn't say that. Those weren't my thoughts. But now here's somebody willing to investigate an alternative viewpoint. I do think once a friendship develops, those moments where you're being questioned about what you believe go away, because it's not the focus. As I mentioned, when I was deconstructing or working my way out of religion, I went to church 2 years after I became an atheist. 2 more years, because I was in a non-denominational church It was one of those like New Thought, Ancient Wisdom kind of things. They talked about God and Jesus and Buddha and this person and that person. So that made it easier because it was sort of standing in a museum of religions and the thoughts about them and the people who sort of believed in the fluffy God, as I've spoken about before. The fluffy God is the God that would never harm anybody, the God that is very loving and nurturing and wants to help you out of your bad situation. That's the fluffy God. The fluffy God was very much, in his element at that church, if you will, because the people, be there 30 minutes, an hour after church, hanging out in the parking lot, talking. That was so common to see hundreds of people doing this. Not everybody went to their car. You stood around, you talked to the people you were happy to see. Sometimes there were celebrities there. Like I saw Shaka Khan there, Christina Applegate, and a bunch of other people. So it was interesting from that respect too. But again, my dearest friends from that church, we didn't talk about what the ministers spent like an hour or so talking about for more than a minute or two.
Oh, you
The
mean like
discussion,
actual? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because we see each other in the parking lot, right? The discussions we had in the parking lot often were, how are you doing? Hey, you were working on this project, you have this concert coming up. How's this going? How's that going? Do you need any help with anything? It was about that, not anything to do with what God is working, what miracle is God working in your life, my dear.
But
It
doesn't that
wasn't that at
suggest? Doesn't
all.
that suggest to you that like it's time for us to move on from this? We don't really need this, because you could take those 2 minutes out, and that to me is the problem is, and that's what I mean about progressive Christians slowing us down is I want to live to see the day we get beyond it. I don't think I will. I don't think I will, but I would love to. And you have to do it, right? Like I remember my grandparents telling me basically the night before the election that they would never live to see a black president. And it was crazy to me because I knew the dude was going to win. And
Hmm.
and it was crazy to me because it was like they put him up. He's beating the other guy in most of the polls. He's clearly, in my opinion, but he's better than the Republican candidate. And they were getting ready to vote for him. So literally, as they were getting ready to vote for him, they still didn't believe it would happen. And I think a similar thing can happen with religion. Like if we would just have the audacity, if we would just be brave enough, bold enough to tell people, I just don't believe in this nonsense, and hold to that, and not try to be mean to them or forceful, but just to be real with them. And I do think we could do it, but it's so much harder when the people who should be able to see better, who are decent people, who are usually like educated, and a lot of them are well off. They're not. It's not like they're in that sort of desperation that so many people are in when they turn to faith, and they just don't. And then I think that becomes, and I do think it becomes a problem because I think we're just playing a shell game with churches instead of getting people out of religion. It's just like, oh, was this church over here too extreme? Well, we've got this, LGBTQ friendly church over here. Um, yeah. So, and again, not that I don't want the church to be, accepting. Um, I just don't think it's true. And so that's hard for me. But I'm in a different place. So I wanted to highlight this comment from, oh, where did it go? So Lena said, because Lena had previously said um, that she believes all the new age atheists are traitors, in my opinion. And so I asked why, And Lena said because atheism ought not to be reduced to a philosophical position. It ought to be a core aspect of progressivism and socialism. I agree with this so much. I so strongly agree with this. And I honestly think that this is a problem, because I think especially out here in the social media landscape and YouTube world, what we're doing right now with atheism is we are reducing it to a philosophical position. And I think we're largely doing that to make theists comfortable. I think we're largely doing it, and it's the same thing. Like, I don't say the same thing, but I feel a very similar way about like evolution and religion, or sorry, evolution or creationism. I shouldn't say that, but maybe like, let's say science and religion to an extent, or science and faith. Like, I don't think they're reconcilable. I don't I know, right? And then we have to go, well, technically, right? Like, technically you could believe in evolution and accept scientific accounts and still be religion, I still be religious. But I think for a lot of people, for a lot of people, it's they can't. I don't see how. But I think this comment really highlights that about atheists. So sorry, what I was getting at is, like, with evolution, we just say, hey, it's strictly uh, an explanation about how we get different species and yada yada yada. But the real implication is that we were not created, and since we now
Mm-hmm.
created, it's on us to move forward with that knowledge, and we don't do that. We pretend we can just keep it over here as a little scientific theory, and it doesn't have to influence everything else. And I think that's a mistake. I think now that we know that we evolved, we should set aside the supernatural, and we should go about building a whole world system, not just world view, but economy and like actual, living system based on this knowledge. And yeah, I think atheism fits right into this. So I agree with this. And I'm kind of happy to carry the torch on this a little bit, actually, because I think out here a lot of the atheist space has reduced it to a philosophical conversation. You see this a lot, like call-in shows and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Cool stuff. All right. My one black friend, what do you think about my comment about it's nice to do good things in the neighborhood, but when the gangsters do good things in the neighborhood to sort of cover their reputations, we don't necessarily think they deserve, a ton of praise for that, or maybe we do. Where do you think churches fit sort of on that spectrum, and what do you think of like atheist participation in that regard?
Well, in American society, there's a hierarchy, right? There's the Christians who influence the Christians in government officials, the
Sure.
government officials that are making laws based on that influence. Then there's the larger churches in town and the church on the corner and the individual believers in those churches. Most of our interactions are with the individual believers from those churches. It's not the church in the county, whatever, as a group. It's not the lawmakers, and it's not the people telling those guys which laws to make that will ultimately benefit the churches, right? The local Catholic church near me, they didn't sit in there on a series of Sundays and come up with Project 2025. The people that we most interact with, I think that's where, I guess, they're the ones paying for the turkeys, right? Not Nino Brown. They're the one paying for the turkeys. The people at the top telling the politicians what to do aren't paying for the turkeys. They're paying for the politician. they're getting the politicians reelected. They're working for that sort of thing. That's their power and influence. Those are the people, in my opinion, that most need to be reached, because they are foolish enough to think that I keep reaching for the Bible. It's across the room because I want to hold it up and shake it. The things in that book are the way a society ought to conduct themselves. Look, some of the wisdom and foolishness in that book is 3,500 years old, some of it even older. And we've gone a long way from where they were. If they were so smart, why didn't they have self-driving cars back then? Why didn't they have the light bulb back then? You know, I can go to a camping store, buy some like canned goods, and push a tab or flip something, and the food inside will cook. One of my teachers had me design one of these when I was like in high school. You know, use calcium carbonate and water. How do you do it? How are you going to make this happen? Okay, I'll do it. So it's not that they had the best ideas. Yes, they had some ideas, and other people, their contemporaries in other cultures who did not have that same God, they also had really wonderful ideas to move society forward. Not all of them were to move society forward. Some of them were just to protect the station of the king or the priests or whatever, so they can keep on being rich. We have to strike a balance, and it's hard, and maybe everybody can't do it, right? There have to be atheists that know how to reach those people telling the politicians what to do, that are creating a more oppressive society so that we can appear more righteous.
Okay, so that hang on, let me just bring this up so I don't forget, because I've already forgot like 3 times.
Okay.
Politics, like that's a huge part of it for me, like a huge part of. And again, I feel very differently. There's a lot of different stuff. Okay, so for instance, I feel differently about you being an atheist and being participating in a church stealth, like in other words, they don't know or nobody knows, than I do about you participating in a church and you're out about it and people do know. I also feel differently, and I know this sounds like a cop out, but I do feel differently about people who gig at a church, because there's a long tradition of musicians playing in churches but they're non-believers, people, you know, helping with the tech and stuff like that are non-believers. For most people like that, paid or unpaid, those are just gigs and they're just trying to gig and get experience. And I'm not saying that people can't object to that. I certainly can understand somebody objecting to that, but I'm just saying I feel differently about people because they're different. To me, they're different categories. But the politics of it is important. Like, part of what frustrates me, even like I was saying, like my family or the Christians that I know, who are definitely, it's a problem with liberals, so to speak. That's exactly how I see it. Is they are unwittingly, I think, empowering conservatives and loonies by continuing to go along with this God and it not being true. And so that's a thing that didn't quite come up in the podcast. In other words, the idea that not necessarily just like that maybe it's partially like that the consequence of that tacit endorsement thing. It's the idea that you're going along with it, you're pretending it's cool. Okay, so if there's other Christians out there that have problematic ideas, you may not agree with those, but do people get the impression that, you know, that you're helping the church concentrate its political power? In other words, it's not just that you're showing up and singing the songs, but when the politician comes to speak to the congregation, you're there. And even by being there, you are reinforcing the idea that this is where politicians should go when they want to reach a community. Does that make sense? So, yeah, I just think that that's kind of something that people could consider consequential. Yeah. Liberals are way too friendly with fascists. Yeah, it's
well, Who said that?
Lena.
Lena.
I think it's just that most people don't know, and I think most people don't really know how bad it is, and so they've just been programmed to think church, God, Jesus, good, very simple thing. Oh, a religious person, they must be a great person, they must be holy and honest and kind and all of these type of things. And they just, number one, they haven't realized it's all fake. Like,
It's pro wrestling.
yeah, like
Mhm.
you see this all the time, like people of clergy just being in positions of power over people who I think would be probably more qualified. But if you consider the theological accomplishments to be on par, that's how you end up in a situation like that. Um, but yeah, it's just, and so there is a sort of deference. I mean, think about even like the way we see men of the cloth in public. They're usually, a lot of times they're wearing something very different that sets them out, and people treat them with a certain
Mhm.
amount of deference and respect. A lot of times we use their honorific titles, yes, your holiness, and all of this type of stuff. So um I think people have been conditioned that they have to be friendly with these people. But yeah, I don't think you should be. And that is a lot of where I was coming from with Michael Behe. Now, to be honest with y'all, I'm gonna be real quick with this, but like a lot of times, y'all, I think, first off, I think a lot of that talk about, oh, why are you so emotional and da da da. To be honest with you, I think a lot of that stuff is very prejudiced. When you look at who is told that they're being too emotional and what they actually have to do to be considered to be too emotional, just it'll speak volumes to you if you actually look into that. Um also, like, too emotional, like, I was prepared, I was kicked back, I was laughing, and he, when he needed to say something, I let him say something until he said something that was totally nonsense, and I would just respond to it. Like, it's crazy. Like, you could literally just be like, I wasn't raging, I wasn't pounding my fist, I wasn't throwing things, I wasn't yelling. I was just like, yeah, no, I got this asshole. I'm not gonna let him go. So it's just always interesting to me to like that people are more likely to treat certain people like they're out of control, and who are they likely to say that about? So yeah, just think about that. But also, yeah, it's like when someone's a because I originally tied it to Lena's comment about being too friendly with fascists. Like, why would I be nice to this person? This is a person that's lied about my field, lies about my colleagues, is probably going to lie about my work once he gets a hold of it. Is lying, has admitted under oath certain things, and then now is trying to backtrack those and be disingenuous, as asserting that they're basically being asserting conspiracies. Like, no, like, these are trash people, and it's very weird to me that the cultural pressure is to be friendly to frauds. We don't. No, we should let them know we don't mess with them like that. We should let them know that we know who they are and they're not welcome. Um, so yeah, it's that's just kind of my take on these things. My one black friend, what do you think overall about atheists going to church?
Depends on why you go.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Mm.
so let's take a couple situations I have been in. That woman Nicole that I dated, it was important to her that I had a faith practice ultimately and become a Christian. Well, I'd already been there and done that, and I'm sure she'd tell you I sure put a whole lot more thought into it than she had
Mm.
at that
Uh,
point in her life.
that was interesting.
Um, but it wasn't for me. But she definitely wanted, her future husband or ultimately husband to be sitting in the pew next to her, praising God, holding her accountable for her faith, and she doing the same. Okay, that has power. That's fine. Um, my wife now, there are times she says, well, I want to go to church. So my neighbor's a minister. So we would go, we got married by him in his church. We've attended services there before we got married, after we got married. He sold his house, so he's moving, but we might see when our daughter, because my wife is Cuban and it's her culture that you baptize the kids. Look, I'm going to give the kid a bath myself. So what's the harm in having her baptized when she doesn't know any better? And my wife gets the cultural fulfillment that she as a mother has performed her duty in getting her baby baptized. And chances are this kid is going to attend many hot programs, in my arms or at my side or on my lap, and be very interested in looking at you and whoever else pops up on the screen. But one day she's going to make up her mind whether or not religion is interesting to her. And if so, which ones are. So that's fine. So for my wife, I'll go to church as often as she needs me to, twice and maybe even 3 times in a month. If we're volunteering to help make food for other people, I'd do that same thing twice, maybe even 3 times in a month. The reason I think it's appropriate to go is to create happiness in your life, just like many things you would do. If it's creating misery, perhaps it's not what you should be doing. If you have, again, many people who are non-believers will have a partner that is a believer. You have to support that person, but you have to do it on your terms. You can't hate supporting that person, in my opinion. You have to enjoy, I hope, in supporting that person, or not mind, right? If you don't enjoy it, at least you don't mind. I don't mind attending church with my wife. As a musician, pocket locker, look, if the church is paying up, go get your money, man. Have them pay you your whatever you've demanded for the
Yeah.
for the honor of having them hear you. Take their money because you're fulfilling a need they have. You're literally answering a prayer probably, and that's perfectly all right because you're getting something out of it. You're in fact getting exactly what you want out of it, and that's going to be a pretty good thing for you, and of course other people in our audience. So I think those are some great reasons if you have friends that are getting married, or family that's getting married, or some other event that's performed in a church. Movie night, beer night in the church is hilarious. So go for that. But as long as you are fulfilling your desires, I think it's good to attend a church or show up at a church or go to an event.
So I think it's I don't know. I guess my thoughts are kind of mixed. It's not something I'm gonna. It's probably not something I'm gonna berate somebody about, but I'm seriously skeptical of an atheist going to church. Even myself, like playing on a worship team, it I don't necessarily feel great about it anymore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's something I would do again in the future. Um, it's definitely something I had fun doing from a musical perspective and from a social perspective. I just don't know that I could um, bring myself to, especially not as a volunteer. Maybe if I was paid
Get
um,
paid.
just for the extra money, I could maybe play somewhere. Um, Certainly not as a congregant or being involved in the church in any sort of non-service capacity. Um, I'm not because again, I'm not the type of person to say you shouldn't bake a cake for a church or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think maybe I don't know if it, so kind of back to Lena's comment. For me, being an atheist is the foundation of something much more, and I'm anti-religion. I want religion to end. I want it to be over. I want it to die. And
Mm-hmm.
so from that perspective, any kind of normalizing their ritual, I can understand as problematic. So, I just, even something minute like christening or baptizing a kid, I could just see how it's normalizing religious ritual, and it's also maybe normalizing that dualism in the child rearing, right? That yeah, because basically I'm getting at, like, your religious partner isn't going to stop with christening or baptism. It's gonna keep. They're gonna say, well, now what about the next thing? What about the next thing? And I think that's
But
the thing anybody in our community has to deal with if they're married to a believer.
but wait a minute. Let me ask you, what is the next thing after the baptism? What else? What else is there?
Well, it depends on the particular faith. So, for instance, they're Catholic. There's First Communion, then there's confirmation, or just going to church or participating in Sunday school. It's just whatever the next step is. Once you've said, sure, you can baptize a kid, I don't have a problem with that. The expectation is going to be that you're comfortable with more, and until you decide where the line is. And it's not my choice. A
Well,
lot of people, I think a lot of people are fine with it, and a lot of people want to expose their kids to different religions and stuff like that. I don't know that I
yeah,
would.
I say define where the line is before you say yes. You know, can
But
I think
so here's
about
the question:
that?
would
Can
you?
I just say that? Can I think about that? If
Yeah,
she asks, right?
sure.
That's the perfect thing to say. Let me think about that because I'm not a church person, so I definitely want. I don't want
But
to
let me
say
ask you this:
no,
would
but I
you
want to set some boundaries.
would you want your child to go to a KKK cookout?
No,
No. So that's the difference, sort of, in how we see the church. I didn't ask you that to insult you. Please understand. No, I
no,
said
it's fine.
because you see the church as like, I just don't believe in that anymore, kind of that philosophical. Whereas I see the church as like bad, like it's bad. Like, I'll be
Right.
honest with
I have the more
you.
anthropological view, like this is fascinating. You
Yeah.
have the view like this is
Burn it,
awful.
burn it down. Yeah, just burn it all down. So, like, my dad has a picture on his wall in his bathroom. It's just a wall in his bathroom, and it has a Bible with a gun on top of it, and it says something like, "The choice is yours." Now, I don't think my dad's religious. I don't think my dad goes to church. He'll say God once in a blue moon, but I could tell he just, he's like me. He doesn't really trust people that want to be in ministry. So literally, I don't think my dad's religious, but that image is basically suggesting that, you either you become religious and do Bible, or you become a gangster and do hard stuff, and you end up dead or in jail, right? And
I
so, to
don't know that
me,
that's what that means.
oh, it's definitely what it's getting at.
No, not necessarily. Are you going to look for God to protect you or are you going to protect yourself? That's what I see. That's what I envision when I think about that image. Because am I going to, if the burglars breaking into my house, am I going to go immediately into prayer and hope that they are there for goodwill? Or am I going to hope that my wife has been practicing at the gun range and these will be her first kills? It's real simple for me. I'm rooting for my wife, not Jesus. If
It,
Jesus was interested, he could get his black ass out here and get those guys out of my house.
it's something like this. Like, it isn't in
Oh,
color.
money, I'll
It's
take
in
money.
color, but it's something like this. And I hate it, just because to me it's presenting this dichotomy. Even the way you present it, like trust and faith or whatever, it's presenting this dichotomy that the Bible is clearly the good choice, the Bible is the good way to go, and doing the other leads to trouble. I would take that off as well. Matter of fact,
Mm.
if we ever have a serious conversation, I'll be like, I hate that thing, please take it off your wall. Because to me, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not just, don't christen your baby if you're my co-host. I'm like, literally want my dad to take a picture off his wall. Like, when I moved into my place, there was like a little prayer thing. That can't, no, it's got to go. Like, I'm not tolerant of any religious propaganda
Hmm.
anymore. But no, I think that's what people have to kind of decide for themselves, right? Yeah. Daryl Davis. Okay, so Daryl Davis is an interesting example. So Doorknob had asked, what was the name of the bridge builder that went to a KKK cookout? Really amazing guy. I forgot. Daryl Davis. Okay, so like this is what I mean, y'all. When you mature and you grow, like change is what you should expect. When I first saw Daryl Davis TED Talk, I was hooked. I've seen his TED Talk a couple times and other interviews with him, and I was like gung ho. Matter of fact, when I first started interacting in this community, I was really on that Daryl Davis tip. That's why I was super excited when I found this community, because people here actually talk to Christians and non-believers and people that think different politically, or they engage with their ideas. I thought all that was super cool. Now I can't stand Daryl Davis. Because I've just sort of, I don't want to say can't stand. I shouldn't say that. My perspective has changed, and so my understanding of what he does has changed. I don't have any personal animosity towards him, but I don't think that in this time that we're living in, this idea that it's our responsibility as oppressed people to set aside all of the harmful things that have been done to us, so that we can build a bridge to people that have hated us in hopes that they'll stop hating us. I get what he's doing, and every KKK robe you can collect and put in a locker, kudos to you. I'm happy. I'm really, no, and I mean that sincerely. Like, I mean, like that's results, right? People leaving the Klan, like that result speaks for itself. It's just the message. I don't like the message that it sends. And it took me hearing other Black people criticize him to be like, oh, okay, I get where they're coming from. And I feel the same way largely about religion. This part of the reason, y'all, this is a great comment. It's so I'm glad you brought this up, during iPad. It's part of the reason I don't like progressive Christian. It's part of the reason I don't want to see an LGBTQ friendly church. It's your responsibility as the adult to do what is right. It is not my responsibility to like tell you to not be a bigot. Like, so to me, you know, the burden should be on the people who are wrong to change, not for the people who are marginalized to convince others of our humanity. But when it comes to convincing others of our humanity, I think Daryl Davis has been successful, and his work is rightfully praised for that. Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough though. Cross racial collaboration and community in Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn seems like a place. Hey man, y'all get it going. Let me know. I'm in the North New Jersey area, so I am fairly close to New York City, like just probably a dozen miles or so. How close do you live to LA, my one black friend?
I'm in LA County, so if I was just in downtown LA for a concert last night. It's about 64 miles away, 74 miles away.
74
LA's
miles.
big. LA County is huge, yeah. But I'm at the edge of LA County, North LA County.
Wow. Wow. All right, y'all. So I'll mention a couple more things before we get out of here. So one is, I think if you're gonna be an atheist in church, you definitely got to really question why you're going and participating. And if it's gonna be other things, then you have to make sure you're doing those other things. Here's what I think is a problem. And I didn't hear all of this from that guy, but I think he's definitely in the zone where he's maybe possible of this. This could be possible if he's not paying attention. You can justify it to others. I'm building community, I'm learning and teaching, I'm doing good works with the church out in the community, da 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 da. That all sounds very nice, but what are you actually are doing and getting out of the church? And at least from what we heard, which is just a call-in show, so I don't know what the man's life is. It was a lot of what they get out of it, and you didn't hear a lot of community building or great things they were doing out in the neighborhood, or even a lot of teaching and learning. It was like, oh, we bowl and we drink beer and talk shit about the Bible or ask questions or whatever. And it takes, to me, a little bit more than that, and you do want to do that balance. So I remember like when I was participating in church, part of it was also those things. It was like, okay, community building, I do that. Okay. Teaching and learning, doing good stuff in the community. So when they did stuff, I did it. If that's going to be the case, right, then you want to make sure you're doing it. And also you got to be prepared for the criticism. If you're passing out backpacks in the neighborhood on behalf of the church and somebody says, hey, I think the church is an organization that's not true and covers up harmful behavior, and you're helping them do PR and marketing, like, you're going to have to deal with that, because that's what's going on. And if it's the teaching and learning thing, you want to make sure you're doing that. So are you actually having conversations with people from that congregation? Are you challenging them? Are you letting them know where you're at? Because it's going to be the balance, right? If you're doing a ton of that stuff and then you just go to church on Sunday and sing some songs, we're probably cool with that. But if you just go to church and sing some songs, and then aside from that, you just hang out and go to social events and watch the game and drink beer and play Monopoly, people are probably not going to be very impressed with that effort. So I think there's definitely like a balancing act that was there. Yes, and it was like he wanted their approval. So this was the other thing I was gonna get at is I feel like this happens a lot, which is really a person who doesn't want to walk away from the social associations with religious people, and then sort of scoffs and looks down their nose at atheists. In other words, the position is like, I can still spend time with these Christians and I'm better than you because I'm able to play golf with my Christian buddies, go on trips and roast marshmallows with my Christian buddies. No, and we've had people in our community that are like this. And our
Yes.
response has always been, yeah, it's like that because you don't challenge them. It's like that because you're not serious about all the harmful things that are being done in the name of the church, and you're not confronting them on it. So, so don't come at us with how well you get along with the cult, because it may not be saying to us what you think it says. It's sort of like when Joe Biden, who's no longer our nominee here. Oh no, sorry, not Joe Biden. Yes, it was Joe Biden when he came out and said something about he had higher approval rating in Israel.
Well, who gives a damn? Yeah.
And also, what does that say? Israel's the enemy. Most people probably think you're a Zionist. And what is it? Think about what it says when you say, oh, they love me over in Israel, right? And I
You're
think
not
that,
in Israel.
and we hear that. Well, that's what we hear a lot from these super
Yeah.
Christian friendly atheists. Is oh, my Christian friends love me. They think I'm wonderful. Yeah, because you're not making them at all in any way, shape, or form uncomfortable about their
Uncomfortable.
Christian. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying your obligation is to make your Christian friends uncomfortable. Let's be clear about that. If you just want to kick it and shoot hoops with your Christian buddies, please, by all means, do. But don't then turn around to the atheist community who may criticize it and then act like you're doing all this great, work, when really it's just you like hanging out with Christians, you like going to church. Don't come act like you're better than the rest of us because you're doing those things. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Yeah, the virtue signaling, Crystal, the virtue signaling. How do you think this will play out in your? So where are you at? Like, will you? So you would probably, I guess we should have made another category for like spouses and stuff, right? Like if you go
It's
to
okay.
church with a partner.
Well, again, she doesn't ask to go that much because she's had a bad experiences back in Cuba.
Sure.
She's had only good experiences here, but she's had like 5 of them. I think we've gone 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. That's it. So as far as I'm concerned, let's say we move to another state or something, which we plan on doing at some point, and she wants to establish a church community there because maybe there's a place where they speak Spanish and she can attend a service in Spanish and she's more comfortable with that. I mean, we have that here, but just, go where our friends are. I'm gonna still, that 2 weeks a month and a 4 Sunday month, I'll be there if she wants me to. I don't have an issue with that because I'm going to support her. There's nothing I can give to Jesus, right? I still am a mythicist. I still do not think he ever existed.
Does she
So
know
for
this?
me, she knows that. Oh yeah.
So does she
And
just think you're wrong about these things, or like how have those conversations gone?
well, she just has she says, well, obviously I have a different point of view. She believes Jesus is real. She believes in the Afro-Cuban and practices the Afro-Cuban religion. That's not even just regular Christianity. It's not even regular Catholicism. It's been enhanced with like African stuff from back in the motherland. So it's not even the same as what my neighbor stands up there and preaches, because they have saints. He doesn't preach saints. It's just Protestant Christianity, non-denominational Christianity. His church has wonderful people there. They have car shows at his church, for crying out loud. He made sure I got a shirt, even though I don't believe, but he knows I love cars. He's like, I got you a shirt, man. For Christmas, I got him a nativity, like one of those inflatable nativities. That was his Christmas gift from me. There's zero animosity either way. That's my neighbor, my friend. I love him. He loves us. We're cool. My wife, she has her particular point of view, and she knows I'm not buying into the Afro-Cuban religion at all. But she knows that she's not going to get ridiculed for believing that from me. I let her have it because she lets me have my atheism, right? I'm going to have it anyway. She's going to have it anyway. So the best thing I can do is be on board for her enjoying that. When it comes to the rites of passage, I think that's something, oddly enough, missing in American culture. Not specifically baptism, but I think we need more milestones for our youth. They need to cross more milestones to feel like they've accomplished something. Tribal cultures nailed that. Like, they have that really good. And they believe a lot of things I wouldn't believe either. But as our daughter is growing, my wife and I have already had discussions about what our approach to her religious education will be. She said, you can teach her about religion. And I said, oh, yes, I'll be happy to. But we'll do that cafeteria style. Let's go to a Buddhist temple. Now, chances are she's going to make friends. Now I have a choice. Either we can keep going back to whatever, the Sikh temple, the Buddhist temple, a mosque, a local church, or what have you, where she made those friends, or we can get phone numbers of the parents and we can do activities that have nothing to do with the religious organization, and the kids go too. So we parents get something out of it, the kids get something out of it, and I don't get preached to. Because that's not what I want.
Yeah. So do you just like I guess Lena was asking, like, do you just avoid the you guys, something that you don't talk about a lot, like getting into the arguments and stuff?
My wife loves looking at me. So I'm typing on my phone feverishly. She goes, are you on Facebook or Instagram because she figures I'm having an argument with a religious person. And I often do. And I say, yes, I am. And I'll show her, and she'll tell me whether she agrees or disagrees with what I'm saying, or agrees or disagrees with the person I'm arguing with. And she said to me something I had to think about seriously. She goes, are you bullying this specific person? Are you bullying them? I took great offense to that. But I also had to look at it from her perspective. If I'm challenging the nonsense that this person is spewing out pretty much 5, 6, 7 times a week, am I a bully? Or do I just simply want people to believe true things and not lies? I simply want people to believe
See,
true
that would have
things
triggered
and
me,
not
because
lies.
you get a Christian who like believes in hell or whatever, and they're asking, are you bullying somebody? And it's just very. I honestly see faith as like an irreconcilable difference. I don't think I could date a religious person. I remember when I first made that decision, it was very difficult, and then I was seeing somebody, and I tried for a long time, and ultimately the rejection and just not being able to get on the same page about that, I think, is a big deal. So I think maybe it's me, but yeah, I think that would
No,
be hard. I think that'd be hard.
no, that woman I mentioned earlier, who I met my wife not long after I stopped seeing her. Um, she was spectacular. What a wonderful person. But she needed someone who loved Jesus. And she knew from the discussion she and I had, I didn't even think Jesus was real. The what made it hard for her was I didn't stop simply, I don't think Jesus was real. I could hold up that Bible and start pointing stuff out. This is a reason why I don't. Here's another one. Here's another. I could just go through them. I could justify my disbelief, which is what? It is a threat to her being able to hold on to her unblemished belief in biblical things, in Jesus,
Wow.
right? Because I'm coming with receipts. And it's in the same book she has. I'm not bringing out something new. I'm not taking the Apocrypha and going, you see here in this book your Bible doesn't contain, with my 1864 King James that's that thick and has hymns in it too. And the Apocrypha, it has it in there, but the people who made your Bible didn't have the balls to admit to this other stuff that it existed, but mine does. It's not about that. She wanted someone she can sit with and hold hands or kneel next to and pray. And if the kids got sick, let's pray about it and get some Tylenol or whatever. If she got sick or I got sick, let's pray about it, right? That she needed that to be integrated into her love relationship. I gotta respect that that's a boundary, because for me, I don't need that prayer business. I don't. People do. Not all people. Some people. And she was one of those people. For you, Pocket Locker, I want to encourage you not to date a woman with
No,
a religion of any kind. No religion whatsoever, because you don't want to hurt her with your challenges, even the challenges to other people, right? If you could
yeah,
restrain
yeah,
yourself from ever commenting on her faith, you would never stop commenting on other people's faith, because that's part of who you are at the moment. And I bet you in 50 years, that's still going to be part of who you are.
yeah,
You're,
yeah,
you're a scientist,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's, I can't
How
handle
did
it.
you come to show me your evidence? How did you come to this conclusion? What was your process? Can I replicate that process? Well, look, when I try to replicate that process, it fails early on. So I don't know why you keep believing this. And that's going to get harder and harder for her to hear. Probably. It's unlikely for most women to stand up and say, you know what, Pocket Locker, you were right. It's such horse crap. It is. And now the relationship is a happier one
That
because
would
you both have more money and more time.
Yeah, and that would see that's the hard part for me, is it'd be hard for me to to live with somebody who didn't look at it sincerely in that regard and come to that conclusion. So I yeah, that would be, it would be really tough.
Oh,
Really.
and Pocket Locker, I'm telling you, I'm currently in the preview stage, right? Because our daughter is not born. But once she's born, is my wife's mind going to change? Because I am no less an atheist. If my our little girl goes to Sunday school. What'd you learn in Sunday school today, my dear? And she starts to tell me about Noah's Ark and Adam and Eve in the garden and all that stuff. And she knows I'm going to smile at her. What do you think of that? What's your take on that? And she might ask me, even though I'll be fascinated by her thoughts, she might ask me. And I'm going to be honest with her. No, honey, that's not anything I believe. You know why? Because snakes don't talk. You know why I don't believe there was a worldwide flood? Because there's no geographical or geological evidence to support that.
Yeah.
People have qualified people have checked, right? People who specialize in the field, people who would be very interested to discover that don't work for Ken Ham, they've looked into it. It's just a fable. But what can we learn? And I could say to my daughter, what can we learn from that fable? Just like Alice in Wonderland, it's a fable. I could read her Aesop's fable. What can we learn from these stories? There's great value in them. I don't dismiss that. But you don't dismiss it either. You just want people to understand it's a story.
Yeah, and you know,
someone made it up.
It's like a relationship, you know. I think if you're in an abusive relationship, sometimes you leave, or you know, you're in a company. Let's say you're in a company that mistreats you. Sometimes you leave.
You know your worth.
Sometimes you come back and you sue, and sometimes you try to get the company shut down. And you know, when it comes to religion, I wake up and choose violence. You know, I just don't. I really do want to. I do want to contribute something to ending religion, not just leaving. And I was thinking about this earlier. That, you know, a lot of people, it's just, oh, I don't believe that anymore, and now you just want to leave. No, I'm like, I don't believe this anymore, and I want this. I want them to not be able to do this anymore, so that other people don't have to go through this. Yeah,
You don't want wounds.
exactly.
And you want people who have the wounds to heal. We can agree that religion can be extremely harmful to people. We've talked extensively on Hot Program about ministers or other clergy abusing members of their church. Those people didn't show up for that. They certainly don't deserve that. They deserved a better minister. The whole congregation did, not just the victims.
Right.
So for me, when I consider that, if I hadn't read the Bible and someone presented that to me as a point to ponder about, is this show that God cares, or does this show that God doesn't care? I would have to be honest with myself, the other person, and say, that's worrying, because it's as if God doesn't care. And if God can justify that abuse, God's wrong.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't have a problem saying that, and I've begun to mention to people when I argue with them on Instagram and Facebook, if you consider it a good thing that the God of the Bible answered wickedness with wickedness, what does that say about you? Because I can't condone that. I am more evolved than evolved, as we talk about people being emotionally evolved. I'm above that. I'm beyond that. If I'm all powerful, it doesn't mean I need to use my power to abuse others or cause suffering. I would think I'm more responsible for realizing I should never cause suffering. Because that's how human beings, I have a friend, one of my mentors, she is an alcoholic. She's been sober for like 40 years. And she said to me once, more than once, pain is the great teacher. Well, if I'm the God in heaven causing suffering on people to get back at their wickedness, what I'm teaching them is that suffering is a great way to make other people feel bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So pragmatic.
What are humans going to do?
So let's stop sugarcoating. Yeah, that's me, Crystal. Let's just stop sugarcoating and get up out of here. All right, my one black farm. Final thoughts on atheist attending church.
If you want to go, go. Especially if there's punch and pie.
Yeah, if you want to go, go. But think about not going, and definitely, definitely just understand that if you do go, people are gonna, they may have valid critiques of that decision, and hear them out. All right, gang. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I am like 23 subscribers away from 1,000 or something. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. And hopefully we can get some of the new people to subscribe. Really appreciate y'all. All right, I'll be hanging out and gather, and we'll see you next time.
See you next
Be
time.
good to yourselves.